Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Grand Cruz Astrology. My name is Clayton Cruz, and today's video is about Venus going direct in the sign of Gemini. So, Venus, let's start out with Venus and Gemini. So, Venus went into Gemini back in early April. Before it went into Gemini, it was in the sign of Taurus for a few weeks there. And when it was in the sign of Taurus back in March, that was right around the lockdown time the lockdowns went into place here in the United States. And a lot of us were using that Geminian energy to appreciate the finer things in our immediate environment and our home environment, things that we valued, creature comforts, things that kind of we felt comfortable with and helped us feel more secure. Venus kind of brought a sweet energy into that space. That's not to say that being locked down was sweet for everyone all the time, but there was a sweeter energy there to be tapped into with Venus there in March. When it went into Gemini in April, the energy shifted quite a bit because Gemini and Taurus are two very different expressions of Venus. So Venus, the planet of, it's a planet of balance. It's a planet of ease. It's a planet of enjoyment and pleasure, and being social is a big part of what Venus is. Venus likes to connect. It has a lot to do with relationships, and so with Venus in the sign of Gemini, moving into Gemini, there is ease and flow and balance and just an extra poise or an extra. We're more connected with our style and poise and our ability to flow in our interactions with other people, because Gemini is an air sign. Gemini likes to connect. It likes to communicate. It likes to connect dots. Gemini is the sign of duality. It's a sign of this and it's a sign of that. And so how does Gemini reconcile the duality? By connecting the dots from all sides of the equation, okay? And it does that by connecting with everything, connecting with the entire collective. That's Gemini. When Gemini has energy, that's what it seeks to do. And so the energy of Venus in Gemini, it's a very sweet, it can be sweet. It's very poised. It has a bit of style. It has a bit of elegance to bring to the Geminian expression. And so when it went into Gemini in early April, we kind of felt there was the immediate lockdown, and then there was sort of the desire to connect. And a lot of people were connecting over the air, over the internet, over the wires, over Zoom, whatever it may be, or socially distancing. There was still sort of an emergence of people connecting in whatever way they could. And then come mid-May, Venus went retrograde. And so when that happened, up until Venus going retrograde, for a few weeks there, about 3 weeks, Venus was in what astrologers call the shadow period before it goes retrograde. And the shadow period, it sort of represents the space within a sign that Venus will track over 3 times. So it's going to go over it once. As it's going forward the first time, it's going to go backward in the sky, and then it's go back over it again. So that space that it goes over 3 times, that's called the shadow area. And so on its first pass through that area, it can be a bit like we can feel a bit like at that time like we are. It can be like a bit too much too fast, especially in the sign of Gemini, which is a Mercury ruled sign. So a lot of what I say about Gemini has a lot of overlap with Mercury because it is in the sign of Gemini. So just like with a Mercury shadow, a Venus shadow in Gemini, when it's in that first stage of the shadow period, it can be a little bit too far too fast. It can be a little bit getting ahead of ourselves with our interactions with people and getting ahead of ourselves with our connections. Maybe pushing too far ahead before the world, the rest, before everybody's ready for it, right? There can be a feeling of like, you know, it just kind of putting in more effort than you're getting back. It's not balance, and Venus is all about balance. So that shadow period may have brought a little bit of um, high expectations and a lot of excitement, but not a lot of actual connection. Or the connections therein didn't necessarily go where as far expand as far as maybe we would have wanted. So anyway, Gemini did go retrograde in mid-May, and at that time, it was a time of okay, things are maybe calming down a little bit socially. Um, Although Venus is still in Gemini, but there may have been more reflection in that. May have been a little bit more okay. Now we've gone out and we've tried to connect and we've put out our antennas and we put out our feelers into the world. Okay, uh, what makes sense? How is what of this connecting that we're doing? How much of this is actually going to sustain us going into the future? Because a lot of what we brought in that early Gemini period in early April and that first stage of the shadow was bringing in our habits of connection from the past and what was easy in the past and what flowed in the past. Once Venus went retrograde, we were, during that shadow period, we were maybe finding that maybe some of it wasn't creating the results that we wanted or creating the kind of connection that we wanted. So when it went retrograde in mid-May, it was okay. All right, well, this worked and this didn't work, and that was sort of the process of doing a sort of inventory on social connections and how we can sustainably move this forward going forward. Because once it went retrograde, it was like, okay, let's take a pause here and take a look at this. And of course, we've had a lot of other retrogrades to help us in that process and other areas of life with different energies. So it's been a bit of a reflection period. Obviously, there's a lot to consider at this time. So I mean, up until now, we've had 6 planets retrograde. We've had Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. Okay. And so finally, Venus is going forward. And that's great. That's great because it's opening up a lane of expression because Venus likes to express itself through connecting with people, connecting with others, especially in the sign of Gemini. And it likes to do that in Gemini. It likes to do it in a not necessarily a deep and powerful way, although it can be powerful, but it's more of a collective outreach, wanting to connect with everybody, wanting to connect with people individually, yes, but many people, and what can seem like a very casual, superficial way. Okay, because Venus and Gemini, it doesn't want to get, it wants to account for everything that it sees. It's so Venus and Gemini is going to be so interested in everything on its plate that it doesn't want to leave anything out, right? So we may have overshot that a little bit in April till about mid-May, and then when it went retrograde, we said, okay, we still have the desire to connect with the whole and connect with all its parts in very different ways and connect all these dots. But how to best go forward doing that? That's what we've been evaluating. Well, now Venus is going direct in Gemini. And so now we are going to be reaching out again. We are going to be integrating these things that we've considered and these things that we've learned. And we are going to be able to have a lane of expression. The lane of expression with Venus in Gemini, as I said, is social. you know, Gemini does rule the hands and things that are manual, and so Gemini is very adept at that, and Venus in that sign can have Venus is has to rules artistry and creating things of value, right? So that there may be an artisan component to this Venus and Gemini as well. So there may be, I mean, you know, looking at it that way, there could have been projects we started back in the shadow, or even got a, you know, inspiration about during the retrograde, and now with Venus going forward in the sign of Gemini, it may be time to you know, to see what we can do, to see what we can put together, see what we can create with this lane of expression that is there, whether it be social or through, I don't know, maybe something artisan through the hands. But it is an air sign, so I want to stick more with the communication bit, the connecting through the air, connecting in that way, and I tend to think of it more socially. So that's what we have going on. Now, there is a tendency when any planet immediately goes direct to push a little too far, too fast, and it's kind of like that shadow period where, you know, we can kind of fall flat, put in more energy than we're getting back because, you know, things are kind of falling flat on us. They're not really moving in the way that we thought they would or should, right? So there can kind of be a little bit of that in the beginning when a planet starts to go direct. And I'm thinking more of the inner planets, you know, Mercury, Venus, even Mars, because when they start going forward, they are moving much slower, if at all, just barely. And they're moving at much slower speed than they are uh, when they're normally in transit, right? Because when a planet stops and goes retrograde, it slows down just the same as it when it stops going retrograde and starts going forward again. It moves very slowly from a geocentric perspective. It's not just okay, now it's off to the races again. So, however, we're going to notice a shift. We're going to something within us is going to understand that Venus has gone direct and there is a lane opening. And as humans, we may just be so inclined to, you know, hit the gas and go, right? The lane's open. Let's just hit the gas. Okay. I would just suggest the astrological advice in that case is wait until the road has been built before you hit the gas, because we can just as easily get ahead of ourselves and push too far too fast before the energy is ready to move at that speed, right? So we don't want to outrun the planet Venus. We want to let it get going. It's good to start percolating. It's good to start putting feelers out. But give it I don't know, give it a couple weeks. Certainly once Mercury goes direct, and that'll be mid-July, I believe, around the 12th or 13th. Once Mercury goes direct, well, then Venus is already going to be at that time moving at a pretty good speed. And there's, you know, about a week after that, once we get toward the end of July, there's going to be a couple lanes open, and expression is going to be coming back in a big way. Now, so you know, Venus, it's having a 4-month stint in the sign of Gemini. It went in April, and it's going to leave in early August. That's a long time for Venus to be in one sign. And I normally say that Venus, as a planet, as it transits, it's normally just kind of skipping over the top. It doesn't stay in any one spot for very long normally, but every couple of years it does its retrograde and stays in a sign for about 4 months. And that is the time when Venus, from a transit perspective, as an outside external energy, actually brings, it has consequence, it has impact. Now, it's still, I wouldn't call this a game changer. It is certainly consequential, but in the collective scheme of things, we got a lot of other aspects going on that are, I would say, far more severe right now. But Venus going forward, it is nice. and it is creating a lane for us to have fun. So though there are still things happening that have consequence and are very serious, this is a lane of expression of fun, of ease, of love, of relations. I mean, this is a nice energy to have. So it's not that everything else goes away. It's just that this kind of it opens the door to some laughter, some ease, and some fun to go along with everything else we have going on. So yeah, so when the Venus goes retrograde and when it goes direct, it moves very slowly. When a planet like Venus that normally moves very quickly moves very slowly, like it does, that's when it's very consequential. So there could be some emphasis around Venusian things as we go direct. Keep an eye out for that. And Venus is about balance. It's about relationship harmony. It's about the finer things of life, pleasure. It can be about indulgence. So in the sign of Gemini, I see this more on a social front. Um, I see this this is the time to get very chatty and to connect with people in that way and to enjoy yourself. This is a time to go out. Well, I guess nobody's going out to the comedy clubs right now, but this is a great. This is the advice that I would give um, pre-lockdown. It's a great time for something like that. Great time to hear music. Great time to make music with your hands, playing the guitar. Great expression of this energy, and with the voice. All right, Venus bringing a little bit of poise, a little bit of style, an air of influence to anything that we're doing on a Geminian front. So that's what I got for Gemini now, or for Venus in Gemini. Now, there's also a nice aspect that's happening here with Mars. Okay, so from what I can tell, none of the other planets are really touching Venus in a major way during this station direct. However, Mars is. Mars is going to be connecting with Venus, and it's going to be in a 60-degree angle because Mars is going to be at the very end of June on the 29th and into the rest of July and further beyond that. Mars is going to be in the sign of Aries. Okay, so Mars in Aries and Venus in Gemini, right there within a few degrees of each other, create what astrologers call a sextile aspect, 60-degree angle. And so this is nice. This is nice. So Mars is the masculine counterpart to Venus, right? Mars is so if Venus is about love, it's about romance, it's about beauty. Mars is about war. Mars is about passion. Mars is about sex. Mars is the physical. Okay, so these two energies, they're the masculine and feminine to each other. They both have to do with relating in some manner. Okay, that when you enter into a relationship with another, or even your own internal relationship, you have these two parts of you that are in communication, right? And so with Mars in Aries, it's going to be very strong. It's going to be very passionate. It's going to be very headstrong. Venus and Gemini, very social. So these two energies coming together are going to create an opportunity for a lot of passionate connection, a lot of, I mean, this is a great aspect to get the flirt on, to really try to make progress in any kind of relationship dynamic that is passionate, that is flirty, this is about love interest, but also with the physical biological component to it. There's a real magnetism with these two right now. Now, being in a sextile, it creates an opportunity to use the energy that is there to make something happen with it if you so choose. However, with a sextile, it requires effort. It requires intention put forward to use that energy. It doesn't just fall into your lap. So that's what trines do. This is sextile. So the energy is there. If you use it, you can create a lot of fun with it, a lot of connection, a lot of opportunity. However, if you do nothing with it, then you lose nothing. It's there if you want to use it. So Mars is going to be, for most part of July, I mean, really all of July, let's call it, it's going to be in this harmonious sextile aspect to Venus. And so I see this as a very, it's a very steamy, hot, passionate, racy, flirty, sensual, sexual time. Given the parameters that we're living in, with the other planets that are creating this sort of backdrop or the template, right? There is this going on as well, okay, with Mars and Venus. So this is in the air. It's nice. It's fun. Given all the serious, heavier aspects that we've had in the past videos that I've been sharing, this is nice. This is fun. This is a lane opening up, and there's still all that other stuff out there. So that's not like everything goes away, but it just creates a little room for expressing ourselves again in this. In a relational kind of way, in a fun way, and with Mars, they're a very passionate way, a very physical way. The lane is opening, and we can hit the gas if we want to. So that's sort of what I'll leave you with this Venus going retrograde. It's nice. I'm really happy to do this video, and happy to see that there is a space for us to enjoy ourselves. Okay. Because we've had 6 planets going retrograde, and it's been very reflective and at times a little confining. And as humans, I know for me, even though I understand this stuff astrologically and see that the planets are in retrograde, there's still part of me that's just chomping at the bit to get going. So here's a lane. Here is a lane of expression. So see what you can do with it. See what you can do. Get your flirt on. Have a good time. Whatever way is best for you in your personal situation, right? Like at your own precautions and risk. I understand there are things happening right now with COVID and, with a lot of other things in the world that we're dealing with. So, at your own discretion. But I do see opportunities here coming up for us. So that's what I got. I'm going to do another video about the eclipse, which is bringing in a very different energy on the 4th of July. That will also be in relation to what we're talking about now. And I'm going to do another video about Mars, maybe another 1, 2, 3. I'm probably going to do a lot more videos about Mars because Mars is going to go into Aries, and it's going to be in Aries until the beginning of next year. And while it is in Aries, Mars in Aries, Mars is unfettered in Aries, and so Mars is it's very feisty, it's very passionate, which is okay. However, the conversations it's going to be having with the other planets over the from now until the end of the year, from about mid-August till the end of the year. Actually, I take that back, from mid-July till the end of the year. And this is why I'm going to be doing so many videos. It's going to ruffle a lot of feathers. So I'm going to do more videos about Mars because Mars is going to be with us. It's going to mix things up for us. We're going to know about it. So I'll do more videos about that when the time comes. But for now, this is a light with this Venus going direct and its relationship to Mars. I mean, this is a light. This is a bright spot. So it's a little room for optimism. So that's what I got for now. Hope this was helpful. I'll make another video soon, and I'll see you then. Bye.